DNA testing has now confirmed that a West Virginia man raped and killed a Canadian teenager in 1975.
DNA evidence left on her clothing has led investigators to a suspect south of the border with a long criminal record.
In Quebec today, 48 years after a 16-year-old girl was raped and murdered, police have identified her killer.
And tonight, a 48-year mystery about who raped and killed a 16-year-old girl in Canada could be coming to an end in West Virginia.
This is the story of a freezing cold case that remained unsolved for 48 years until 2023. It's the story of a nice and happy teenager who had her whole life ahead of her. By all accounts, she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's also the story of how science and dogged detective work spanning 2 countries were used to finally solve the case and provide the victim's family with answers they've waited so very long for. Sharron Prior, a Canadian girl born on February 9, 1959, was more than just another statistic. She was a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. She was also aspiring to become a veterinarian, a dream fueled by her heartfelt compassion for all animals. She was pretty and petite, 5 foot 3 inches, with strawberry blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a beautiful smile. Friends and family remember her as warm, kind, with many friends. She was a good kid who loved spending time with her family, was into music of the day, and when she wasn't studying or doing her homework, she hung out with a close group of friends. Sharron liked to play floor hockey, basketball, and swimming at her local Boys and Girls Club, where she had been going since she was 6. She was a very good student with many academic accolades. Sharron was the oldest of 4 siblings, who still adore her to this day, including twin sisters Doreen and Maureen Prior. Let's go back to the day that changed the entire Prior family forever. March 29, 1975. An ordinary day filled with family activities, excitement for the upcoming Easter festivities, and the promise of a fun evening with friends. Sharron was last seen leaving her home on Congregation Street around 7:15 p.m. She was set to meet her boyfriend John McAleer and other friends at a local restaurant, but Sharron never arrived. She woke up, did her chores, and had breakfast with her 4 younger siblings. The family dyed Easter eggs together for the upcoming Easter egg hunt. Sharron said goodbye and left her home to meet with her friends at Marina Pizzeria in her Point St. Charles neighborhood not far from Montreal. It was a 5-block, 5-minute walk from her home. According to Sharron's mom, Yvonne, a friend of hers had been at the family home that day. They hung out after the Easter eggs were painted, trying on clothes and talking in Sharron's room. When they both left the house, her friend asked Sharron if she wanted her to walk her to the pizzeria. Sharron said, "No, but thank you." In a time where there were no cell phones or GPS, her family didn't know that she never arrived at the pizzeria. Her friends simply assumed that Sharron changed her mind and had stayed home. It wasn't until hours later, when she had missed her 11 p.m. curfew, that her mom began to worry. Sharron was always on time and would call if she was running late or had a change of plans. She had never run away from home. In fact, her extra money and bus pass were still in her room. Yvonne remembered that Sharron had mentioned a strange man lurking around the neighborhood in recent days. He had creeped her out so much that she had been requesting that boys from school walk her home. This fact did not help the worry that was mounting by the minute. Knowing in her gut that something was seriously wrong, Yvonne Prior contacted the police to report Sharron missing. As is common with teenagers missing from home for only a few hours, police were not concerned. At first. It didn't take long for police to take Sharron's disappearance seriously, especially when they were told that there had been an attempted abduction on the same block just an hour before Sharron went missing. Near the route that Sharron would likely take to the pizzeria, 23-year-old Cheryl Roy had escaped with her life from a man who attempted to abduct her at knife point. More on that later. Some of Sharron's classmates at Verdun Catholic High School, one of the last English-speaking schools in Montreal, helped police search the local area for her. Even with all the volunteer searchers, they didn't find her. Even though honeybees remain active in the dead of winter, a beekeeper doesn't regularly check the hives. Many beekeepers lose their bees in winter months. While driving past his field at Chemin du Lac and Guimont Boulevard, this beekeeper noticed that someone had driven through his unlocked gate and onto a remote area of his property. The man followed the tracks, believing that teenagers had gone into his field to party. He thought he had come upon a pile of clothing. Upon closer inspection, he discovered the body of the missing girl in the news, 16-year-old Sharron Prior. It was April 1st, 3 days after she had disappeared. Police converged onto the crime scene. Sharron's body was just 15 miles from where it is believed she was kidnapped. She was on her back and had been restrained with tape. Some of it was still stuck in her hair. Sharron was also tied up with a blue men's shirt, size 17 collar with 34-inch sleeves, the shirt of a man at least 6 feet tall. She was wearing only a sweater, socks, and shoes. Her jeans and panties had been thrown into a bush about 6 feet away. There was no mud present on the bottom of her shoes, indicating that she was placed there. Sharron had a broken nose, broken jaw, and several broken ribs. She had been beaten and strangled. In her hand, she was still clutching a tree branch. It was determined that she had only been deceased for a day or so, causing police to theorize that she was held captive before being dumped in the field. The coroner also determined that Sharron was alive when she was placed in the field. She was likely alive until 20 hours before she was found. The official cause of death was asphyxiation. It is believed that she drowned in her own blood. Footprints and tire impressions 15 feet away from the body were photographed for later comparison. No one imagined it would take 48 years to do so. Sharron Prior is buried in Outremont, Quebec, Canada. A yearly scholarship at Verdun Catholic High School was dedicated in Sharron's honor to help young girls reach their dreams. Police had received a tip in July of 2004 that led them to search a garage behind an apartment. 3 DNA samples were gathered, but none of them matched Sharron. Franklin Maywood Romine was born on April 2nd, 1946, in Huntington, West Virginia. He had a long history of criminal acts, escapes, and stints in jail. Police say that Romine bounced back and forth between Canada and West Virginia, committing crimes from thefts to forgery, assault, and murder. In March of 2023, Canadian police petitioned the Putnam County Circuit Court to exhume the body of the man they believed was responsible for the brutal assault and murder of Sharron Prior 48 years ago, Franklin Maywood Romine. He had never been a suspect in Sharron's murder until 2022, when DNA was recovered from the blue shirt used to tie her up back in 1975. Through some DNA detective work, they came up with the last name of Romine. Cold case detectives began scouring criminal records and discovered that Franklin Romine had been in and out of jail for violent crimes and kidnapping attempts from West Virginia to Canada in the 70s. Police had also discovered that in 1974, Romine had broken into a Parkersburg, West Virginia apartment by breaking out a window. He then assaulted and beat a 23-year-old woman while her 4-year-old son was in the next room. She said that he threw a $20 bill at her as he was leaving. The young woman, who was a waitress at the time, said that Romine had pinned her down to the bed. She remembered him saying that he had wanted her since the first time he had ever seen her, and that he was going to have her if he had to kill her. The victim had testified in court against Romine, telling the jury that she knew him from work. He'd come in to get coffee. He had asked her out before. Romine was returned to Wood County Jail. He was released on a $2,500 bond only 2 months later and promptly fled to Canada. A year later, Sharron Prior would be murdered. Eventually, Romine was extradited back to the U.S. to serve time for the Parkersburg attack. He served his time and was back in Canada by 1982. That same year, he died at the age of 36 on August 20th. It is unknown how he died. Police have yet to find a death certificate. His body was returned to his mother to be buried by his family at the Pine Grove Cemetery in Pliny, West Virginia. The question then became, would the West Virginia courts allow the unusual step of exhuming Romine's body in order to prove that he was Sharron's killer?
The petition of the state of West Virginia in the matter of Franklin Maywood Romine.
On April 6th of 2023, Putnam County Circuit Court Judge Philip Stowers was ready to hear from Canadian police who testified for over an hour. They needed to convince the judge that they needed to close this case once and for all and try to match other unsolved violent crimes that Romine may have committed in Canada and West Virginia. They informed the judge the details of the 23-year-old woman named Cheryl Roy, who was attacked while on her way to the pharmacy to get diapers for her infant daughter. She was nearly abducted at knife point in the same area as the pizzeria and just an hour before Sharron Prior was taken. Roy told authorities that she had noticed a man walking with his hands in his coat pockets. She wasn't concerned, so she kept walking. Then she heard footsteps coming from behind her and getting louder. Romine held a knife to her throat and firmly told her not to scream. Cheryl offered him her purse, but he replied, "I don't want your purse, I want you, I love you." Not wanting to die or never see her baby girl again, Cheryl began kicking and screaming as loudly as she could. She cut herself on the knife blade while pushing it away. When she began to fight back, he growled at her, "You bitch, you're coming with me." He grabbed her by the hair and dragged her into an alleyway. He began trying to cut away her clothing with the knife. Romine angrily said in her ear, "You're dead. You're not getting away from me. When I get through with you, I'll cut you to pieces." This bit of information was very key to the case. The official language in Montreal was and still is French. A group of boys heard the screams and started running towards them. Cheryl knew one of the boys and yelled his name. Romine let go of her and slowly backed up before running away. Cheryl Roy had escaped with her life. In a short time, she knew that if she wasn't able to attract the attention of the boys nearby, she would have been dead. Even though her screaming caused her to lose her voice, she was able to describe her English-speaking attacker to a police sketch artist. She told police that he was white, in his late 20s, 6'2", 200 pounds, with brown hair and a mustache. She said that he only spoke English and had no accent. Roy also told police that he was wearing a blue ski coat. The attacker's description was distributed by police. Looking back, the description and likeness to Franklin Romine was uncanny. His shoe size matched the footprints left near Sharron's body, and the tire impressions photographed there matched the car that he owned back then.
Very narrowly, before they took such a step to exhume a body, have meticulously decided in investigating the murder of Sharron Prior that they've developed DNA evidence, they've developed location information, they've developed automobile information, body and build information relating to the decedent, and the court believes that given that there's sufficient cause here to order that the body be exhumed, and that information for DNA purposes that needs to be retrieved will be permitted.
It was now time to back up police suspicions with science. Particularly the DNA evidence recovered from that blue shirt used to tie up Sharron. Romine had never given a DNA sample in his life. Two of his brothers volunteered to provide DNA to help police. One brother told police that Franklin probably did kill Sharron, claiming that his brother had even tried to assault his own wife while he was serving in the Marines. The family had disowned Franklin after the incident. The results were that it was 140 million times more likely that the DNA found came from their brother, Franklin, than any other white male. 3 weeks later, on May 2nd, 2023, Franklin Romine's exhumation began. It was the first time that the Canadian cold case detectives had met the West Virginia team that helped them to put an end to the 48-year-old mystery. After hours of carefully digging, cold case detectives from Canada climbed down into the grave to remove several bones and other evidence from Romine's casket. Within a few hours, the items removed would be on a plane to Canada. Meanwhile, West Virginia cold case detectives have begun diligently searching cold case files and comparing the dates with dates that Romine was known to be in the state of West Virginia and out of jail. Sharron's mother, Yvonne, is now 85 years old. Her and Sharron's siblings have been hopelessly waiting for answers that they feared they might never hear.
Is a full match with the one from the crime scene that belongs to the murderer. So,
we will start by saying how hard it was sitting through today's police presentation of Sharron's case, as it brought back many difficult memories once again. We are still grieving the loss of our daughter and sister, who was savagely murdered at the age of 16, March 29th, 1975. Life has not been easy for us since then, but Sharron has given us strength for the past 48 years, and especially today. Sharron is here beside us. The solving of Sharron's case will never bring Sharron back. But knowing that her killer is no longer on this earth and cannot kill anymore, brings us to somewhat of a closure, this long chapter of our lives.